Hello, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, everyone. My name is Danica Orsabia from Bachelor of Secondary Education, major in English. So, the purpose of this video is to discuss to you the modern poetry forms, the topic that was assigned to me. First, what is modern poetry? So, modern poetry is a departure from traditional poetic forms and topics and reflects the attitude and culture of the 20th century. It was born in the aftermath of World War One. So, this means that um, modern poetry began after the traditional style of writing poems. So, modern poetry focuses on the attitude and culture of the 20th century. This also began after the poets starts to get curious and questions their knowledge about life. So, the poets that I am referring to are T.S. Eliot, Ezra Pound, Wallace Stevens, William Butler Yeats, Edward Arlington Robinson, and others more. So after the World War One, they realized that the world was extremely changed, and the world had extremely changed rather from a rural to industrial one. So these poets decided to reinvent the language they used from the previous poems to a more new one for new reality. So they wanted to include all aspects of life in their upcoming poems. Good things and bad things. The goal of this poetry is to make people realized that it was like um, realize what it was like to live in such turbulent times. So the first modern poetry is the free verse. The free verse poetry does not adhere to traditional structures like rhyme or meter. It allows poets more flexibility in creating meaning and emotional resonance through varied rhythms and natural speech patterns popularized by poets such as Walt Whitman, Emily Dickinson. Free verse encourages experimentation with language and form. So from the words free verse, so it does not follow any structures like a rhyme or meter. So the poets have all the freedom to write anything or everything they want to include in their work or in their poems. It was popularized by the two famous poets during that time, which are Walt Whitman and Emily Dickinson. So here are the two examples of free verse. The first one is Leaves of Grass by Walt Whitman. And the second one is Why Do I Love You, Sir by Emily Dickinson. Next one is acrostic. So it is a word or phrase that we can see in the first letter of each line, any word or phrase that is related to the theme of the poems, and this can be rhymed or unrhymed. It really depends on the poets. For example, roses are red, oranges yummy, sugars sweet, elixir in my tummy. The word um, that is formed from the first letter of each line is rose, which is related to the theme of this excerpt or this poem. The third one is what we call syncane. Syncanes are 5 lines poems with a specific syllable count per line, typically 2, 4, 6, 8, and 2 syllables respectively. So you will recognize a syncane poetry if it follows the 2, 4, 6, 8, and 2 syllables per line. So this poetry form was developed by American poet Adelaide Crapsey. So below is an example of a syncane poetry. Let me read it. Listen, with faint dry sound, like steps of passing ghosts. The leaves frost crisped, they break from the trees and fall. As you can see, it follows the 2, 4, 6, 8, and 2 syllables. There are obviously 5 lines. Next poetry form is Diamante. Diamante poems are structured with 7 lines arranged in the shape of a diamond. They follow a set pattern of nouns, adjectives, and verbs, often describing 2 opposite subjects. So, this Diamante poetry form is structured with 7 lines arranged in the shape of a diamond. So take note that this poetry form followed a set of patterns of nouns, like what I said, nouns, adjectives, and verbs, often describing the 2 opposite subjects. So this form was developed by Iris, Tid or Tite in 1969. This form was also useful in teaching about contrast and parts of speech in educational settings. As you can see, it contains of 7 lines and arranged in a diamond shape. You can see the example. The shape is very obvious. It's diamond and it has 7 lines. It is the first thing that you will look for. If a poem has a shape like this, it means it is Diamante. Next is concrete poems. So in concrete poems, they focuses more on the visual and layout of the text, so which contributes to its meaning. They arranged the words to create a shape that's related to its theme, or its theme rather. One of the famous example is the work of George Herbert, the Easter Wings. As you can see, there are 4 stanzas and there is a shape that looks like wings. Yan, ganyan ang concrete poems. It is focused more on the visual. Next form is scenario. So scenario is similar to haiku. We know that haiku is very famous. Haiku is what we always hear at school. So scenario is similar to it, and however they differs on the content, because haiku focuses on the nature, while scenario focuses on the human nature. Its pattern is 575 syllable, and it often features observations about everyday life. An example is a poem by Yosa Buson, a woman showing a charcoal seller his face in a mirror. As you can see, it follows the 575 syllable pattern, and It focuses on the human nature. Next is the sonnet. So, a sonnet is a 14-line poem that is traditionally written in iambic pentameter, a rhythmic a pattern where each line has 10 syllables with alternating stresses. So, there are two main types of sonnets. The first one is Shakespearean sonnet. The second one is Petrarchan sonnet. So, in Shakespearean sonnet, it follows the rhyme scheme A B A B C D C D E F E F G G, ending with a powerful rhyming couplet. Meanwhile, the Petrarchan sonnet is structured with an octave, which uses the rhyme scheme ABBA and assisted often following CDCDCD or a variation of it. So, sonnets typically explore profound themes like love, nature, a philosophy. What makes the what makes them unique is the volta or the turn where the poem shifts in argument or tone. The poem shifts the argument or tone. This usually happens between the octave and sestet in Petrarchan sonnets or before the final couplet in Shakespearean sonnets. Example of Petrarchan sonnet, those eyes neath which. Next is ballad. So ballad is a narrative poem that tells a story, often accompanied by music. It is written in quatrains or four-line stanzas with alternating rhyme scenes such as ABAB or ABCB. Ballads are rooted in oral traditions, meaning they were passed down through generations by word of mouth. So they often recount folk tales, historical events, or romantic adventures, making them both entertaining and culturally significant. So let me give you an example. The Irish folk ballad Tamlin exemplifies the traditional ABCB rhyme scheme. Here's a stanza. Oh, I forbid you, maidens all, that wear gold in your hair, to come or go by Carter Hall, for young Tamlin is there. As you can see, the example, the story follows naturally, and the rhymes create a melodic rhythm which made ballads easy to memorize and share. Next modern poetry form is the elegy. So, an elegy is a poem of reflection, often written to lament the death of a person or to contemplate themes of loss and mourning. It is characterized by a solemn tone and frequently explores the stages of grief, moving from sorrow to admiration and finally to acceptance. So, elegies have been a significant part of literary history, serving as a way to mark both personal and cultural losses. So, through their reflective nature, they provide a sense of comfort and closure. So, here's an example from one of Ovid's famous love elegies. I'll read it. Heaven knows they're made. I love no other fair. In thee lives all my love. My heaven lies there. Oh, my may I by indulgent fate's decree with thee lead all my life and die with thee. In this excerpt, we see that the poet expressing deep admiration and longing, emotions often found in elegies. So, although not strictly about death, it reflects a heartfelt contemplation of love and its potential loss. That is a good example of love elegies. Next one is the Villanelle. Villanelle is a 19-line poem with a strict and unique form. It is made up of 5 tercets, 3 line stanzas, followed by a quatrain or 4 line stanzas. So the villanelle follows a specific rhyme scheme, ABA for the tercets and ABAA for the quatrain. What makes this form truly distinct is that the use of repeating refrains. The first and third lines of the first tercet are repeated alternately as the final line and of each subsequent tercet. So these refrains came together again as the final 2 lines and then of the concluding quatrain. So while villanelles often incorporate meter, they are they are not tied to any specific type, giving poets more flexibility within its structured form. For example, let's take the poem I Lost My Turtle Dove. So by Jen Passeret. I don't know if I pronounced it correct. It beautifully showcases the ABA rhyme scheme in the tercets and ABAA in the quatrain. The repeated refrains create a haunting and a melodic rhythm, enhancing its emotional impact. So here is an example of I Lost My Turtle Dove by Jen Passeret. As you can see, the ABA rhyme scheme for the tercets and the ABAA rhyme scheme for the quatrain. So in conclusion, everyone, that modern poetry forms have expanded the boundaries of traditional structures, embracing flexibility, innovation, and diverse themes. This evolution reflects the dynamic nature of poetry as a medium of expressing contemporary experiences, emotions, and ideas, ensuring its relevance in an ever changing world. I think that's all for this report. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you understand something.